One of my favourite books of all time is a book called The Road Less Travelled by Scott Peck. I would really urge you to read it. I think it's fascinating. And in there, amongst a lot of other things, he says that laziness is the root of all negative emotions. It's the root of all problems in your life. Laziness. And I think that's fascinating. I'd never even really noticed laziness until I read that book. But I think he's right. I think it does lead to every other problem in the end. And that's why he calls it the road less travelled. Because the road less travelled is the high road, the harder road, where you get the great views. The easy road is the low road, where you go down the hill into the mud. And I physically discovered this when I used to do a lot of mountain biking. And if we had a planned route, it would be great. We'd go along the ridge, we'd have all the views, we'd end up with a lovely descent back down to the car park. But if we didn't plan a route, if we just made it up as we went along, we tended to be lazy. We'd come to a junction, there'd be an uphill and a downhill, and we would tend to take the downhill, and then we would end up down at the bottom in the mud without the views. So I think he's absolutely right that to have a great day out mountain biking, you need to take the road less travelled, the higher, harder road. And of course, that's a metaphor for life, because the harder choices are often more rewarding in the end. So laziness does lead to all sorts of problem. I want to mention 3 quick exceptions though, because I think sleep is really important. That's not laziness. You've got to get enough sleep. I think most people need about 8 hours, which is quite a lot, but make sure you get enough sleep, otherwise you won't be happy. I also think sunshine certainly makes me feel happy. I think it makes most people feel happy because we need the bright light. It does something to our hormones, to our pituitary gland or something. So we need the bright light of the sun to make us feel good. So sleep, sunshine, and maybe chocolate as well. Maybe eating chocolate in moderation does make you happier. It's probably more towards laziness than hard work eating chocolate, but why not? I think you're allowed to have a few lazy pleasures. Why not? But I think we've all had that feeling where we've been really lazy for quite a long time, and then we kind of know that we're underachieving and that we could have done more, and that makes us to start to feel unhappy. So the biggest leisure activity that we tend to indulge in at the moment in our modern world is watching television. And quite often watching TV makes us less happy, particularly watching the news, which is really negative and depressing most of the time. The news always focuses on the bad things. So you can watch the news and feel quite depressed. Even reading the newspapers as well, I think, makes us less happy. If you think about when you're on holiday, when you're out of touch with the news, you feel great. And when you get home, it's the same old stuff. Nothing's changed. So I think, by all means, watch the news occasionally, but I wouldn't get too obsessed with it because it is quite negative. Now, there are good things on TV, of course, and if watching particular films or something make you happy, then that's great. Know yourself. But if it becomes a lazy habit, then it probably will contribute less to your happiness than you would like. Something interesting about television compared to reading is that television is a push activity. It gets pushed out at you. So you could be asleep, the television doesn't know. It carries on just pushing at you. Whereas reading, you're pulling the information out of the book at the speed that you want to go at. And your brain much prefers that because your brain can pause if it wants, it can go faster or slower. But also it involves a lot more learning and imagination. It's much more stimulating for your brain. So I think reading will probably bring you more happiness than watching TV. But it's all about knowing yourself and working out what makes you happier in the end. But don't be seduced by laziness into thinking that the easiest activity will make you happiest, because quite often the ones that require a bit more effort, like reading, will make you happier in the end.